So how, what does the stuff I just described have anything to do with this? Well, this is the traditional approach, and this is how I started too. I was guilty as just as much as anyone in terms of how we coach. And you can see a lot of these feedback points on the left and the typical drills and practice features that you would see on the right. Okay. Now, the thing is, with this traditional approach, it's very different to what really happens. So you can see here the defender, all right? And the traditional approach, we typically don't look at, what is actually happening in the reality of a game. What the situations and the affordances, the opportunities provided by the defense are completely different to practicing without defense, all right? So for me, I don't view the game as looking at individual techniques and things like this. I'm really constantly looking at the CLA, that constraint model that I showed you, in terms of, constraints and how things are emerging. So you can see just at the bottom here, I've put affordances. So these are different things that could happen, okay? So in this photo right here, obviously it's a closeout situation. So I've just shown some of the different affordances that could exist. So we got, is Paige open? Has she got enough space and time to actually shoot? There might be a teammate to pass to who is even more open next to her, like an extra pass. There might be an opportunity to drive the ball and attack. The defender might recover to neutral, I call it chest to chest. So there's no advantage. So Paige can't shoot, she can't drive. So we have to run another trigger, like maybe another pick and roll, a screen away or something to create that advantage. Or Paige might do something like a fake to try and create the advantage and get her defense out of position. So why I'm showing this is we've got to think about all these things when we're designing our practices, and specifically, how can we create offenses which also align with this? And this is where Conceptual O comes in. And you can see here, I've also shown some other examples of, constraints, and specifically, I'm showing the task constraints in this closeout situation. So the task constraints aren't confined to only something in your practice in a small-sided game. It's also everything that happens in the game. Okay, every possession, different task constraints. Okay, and obviously that is why different solutions are going to emerge. So, the problem. What we typically see is a lot of patterned offenses, and this would be things like continuity motion, where there's like a pattern, and that could be something even with like under 12s or under 14s, like pass cut. Okay, that's a pattern, right? A continuity motion. With older players, or even under 16, set plays, okay, where players run the sets through and they have a very kind of specified pattern. And the reason why I kind of don't align with these approaches now, with everything I've learned, is because it's basically, like I said, basketball is complex and every situation is different. So instead, I want to prepare players to be able to adapt to that and really be skillful in every situation they see. All right. And this is why I call it the Harvard Gorilla. You can do this on YouTube. It was a attention test done by some researchers at Harvard, and you have to count the number of passes the team in white make. And the first time you do it, you're so focused you don't see the gorilla. And this is exactly, if you think teams playing offense running these patterns, right? Take a youth team running pass cut or pass screen away. They become so focused running the pattern that they're not attuned. They don't see the information in the environment, so they don't act on affordances. So, it could be a pass and cut, and maybe the defender is standing to my side, and I could just drive the ball and get a layup. But I don't see that because I'm so focused on running this pattern in my head, right? So I'm basically restricted. I'm negatively constrained by the offense, okay? So the conceptual offense is the complete opposite to this. And I know this is very different because it's like, even now, it's seen as a good thing for clubs to have things like a pass and cut at younger ages. And, in coach education even, by FIBA, things like this are advocated as what to do at the younger age groups. But that's why, I'm trying to show you some of the research and actually, look at things from a different perspective. So the alternative, what is it? And all of this has been created as for me, it's taken 4 years, and it's me. I went through the struggle of trying to figure it out. So at first, when I first started trying to come up with this, I couldn't really explain it well, and I was really missing out on key things. But now, just after refining it, I've kind of packaged it all together and put it into this conceptual offense framework. So the idea is, it all starts critically with pace and space. So this critically is in our transition phase of the game. So we have 4 phases. We got transition offense, half-court offense, transition defense, half-court defense. So those are what I call the 4 phases of the game. So in the transition offense phase, playing with pace, absolutely critical, and I'll get into some of the evidence why in the next slide. The idea then is that if we do not have an advantage, the whole aim of the offense is to create dominoes, to start an advantage. If we don't have that, instead of having to move to particular spots on the floor to begin the offense, we're immediately just running one singular action from however we arrive in transition. Because the problem is, if players have to be in a particular part of the floor to begin the offense, you can't play fast, right? Because players are so focused on getting to that spot, we then miss out on the affordances for easy rim finishes, open threes, etc. So my idea instead is we play fast because statistically the easiest shots, the most open shots, you find in transition. Why? Well, the defense aren't back. They're distorted. You have more space. You can get 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, etc. So the idea with the offense, and I've got all the video examples just about to come up, is it's pace and space. And if we don't have that advantage, we can't get a good shot early, then we're just into a trigger, all right, which is one of these actions. I call them triggers. And then the idea is out of every trigger, players have different solutions, which is a coverage solution. They have different coverage solutions to start an advantage and beat the defense. So if we take something like a pick and roll, some different coverages on a pick and roll. It could be a switch, which is what we're going to see most of the time, especially at the youth levels. It could be a blitz, a double team. It could be a hedge. They could go under. It could be a drop coverage. The idea is that the players have solutions for all these coverages, all right? And we're not, as coaches, we're not calling that out. It's all player-led. So the players sprinting down the floor, they see the neutral, no advantage. They initiate the trigger, and then they're playing. Okay?
When you do initiation into trigger,
sure.
It's too long, and I feel like players are...
Absolutely. Yeah. I've got some good video on that. Perfect. I've got some good video on that. And the last part, coaches, is I'm not completely anti-sets, because sets have a time and place, right? Because the benefit to sets is that you can, if they're well designed, and you all know this obviously very well, you can simply distort the defense, right, so much more than a singular action. But the key thing is with the set, for me, it's only on dead balls. So obviously you've got base out of bounds side plays, but then things like violations and when substitutions, that's when we run the set, a half-court set. So it could be 6 to 10 times a game, typically. But the idea is when we run the set, it's not running the pattern through to the end. So if we have an advantage on the first part of the set, say we have a flare screen as the first part in the set and the defense chase and we can curl it, we'll take it. So we're not trying to get the set play and run it through to the end. If we can go off script early on because there's an opportunity, we do it. And I want the players to do that. So we're going to get into some video here. And this, I'm not showing the transition right now. I want to show the half court, okay, and some of the triggers. So this is just some half court. This was actually yesterday's practice. And you can see here 2 triggers put together. So here you can see we've got a dribble handoff, a DHO, immediately followed by a pick. All right, and this is all conceptual. Now on here, we call that a zoom. All right, so, and I'm going to talk about fast and slow later, so don't worry about that for now. So in this video, I want to kind of show you some of the triggers so we can start to identify them. So players will call these out, but they're one-syllable words, and they're not play calls. All right, so we're coming down from transition, and you're going to see the video in like 5 minutes. We're neutral. We don't have an advantage. The players call it out, and all of these are one syllable. So a pick would be pick, not pick and roll because it's too long. They just say pick, pick. Could be get, screen away is away, away. Flare is just flare screen is flare. Then we have zoom and pistol. Now, the key things, coaches, are to begin with, the players call them out. And it can be either the player who has the ball doing it or a player off the ball. All right? But they can take the initiative. Anyone can take the initiative to call it. It doesn't just have to be the player in possession of the ball.
So they read out.
So they just call it out, exactly. So, and that's a good point, because obviously some of these things can also suit particular spacings based on how we arrive, and I'm going to show that. So, these are quick words done very, done in, and within a second, we're in the trigger.
Let's take a deep dive into the BDT offense, the world's first ever resource with a comprehensive how-to guide for you to be able to build your own conceptual offense. In relation to them, the ball, and
So there's no contact, I'm sprinting through and I'm popping. And you could drive. So if they have to connect either with eyes or vocals. Now, I'll be honest, we're at the level now with my team where we're doing these things without calling it. But that takes a long time, and I've had a lot of practices with them this year. And I think you can do that if you have kids in your team, in your club, start from under 12s. By the time they get to like under 16s, if they're doing conceptual offense 2 times a week, they'll be able to do it. It just needs some time. But first, definitely having the calls helps. Yeah. So this is the zoom. So the idea is, we've run the zoom and distorts the defense a little bit because of the speed of these 2 triggers. And then you can see one of the coverage solutions we use a lot is the slip. So when we don't hold contact on picks, we escape before making contact. So that's a slip. So if you just watch my big here in the middle in the trail spot, he slips it. So that's a great coverage solution. And what does that do? Well, it draws the help. A tag, we call that. All right? Because he's tagging the roller. So now Linus, perception action coupling, which we looked at, he perceives it. He can see that that's happening. All right? And now he comes up with a solution to skip pass. Right? So this is the whole idea where, and through this approach, you can see that just in one possession, players are learning how to play basketball. I don't want them to just memorize patterns because it's not going to help them and be conducive in their career. Whereas if they can know and react and actually know what information to look for, they'll be able to play for any team in their career. And any playbook, they'll know immediately, especially when they get older and they become professional, it's more set orientated. They'll know every set because every trigger within the set they're comfortable with. So that's a zoom. We didn't make the shot, but really nice possession. Now you can see a dominoes clip, which we're going to get onto the theory later. So you can see we've started an advantage, out to space. We're just playing with concepts. All right, so no patterns. I'm going to get through these quickly. Here we're trying to run a flare screen. It creates a little bit of space. Defense aren't organized, so they don't switch it well. Now we have an advantage, and we'll just play. All right, and this is my big, so it's completely positionless. So he's out on the perimeter now in that corner. We developed that, through all the small-sided games, we're developing this ability for him to do that. And at the start of the year, literally all he could do was play on the low post because he only joined me in the summer. He could literally just do back-to-basket moves, 6'9", and now, after a year, he's able to do things like this, and it opens up a completely different, opportunity for him to do things with basketball. Okay, now this is a get. Okay, so you can see this is a fast trigger. We run this a lot. So pass, and the passer comes to get it back like a handoff. But it's not a dribble handoff because we do it off the pass, so it's a lot quicker. You can see coverage solution here. Linus goes back door. All right, he sees the defender overplaying, so he goes back door. He's attuned to that, and we get a high-value shot.
Once the trigger is called, it's the responsibility of the players not involved to get in the right spacing.
Absolutely, in space. Now, I will look at this later on because there are some other things we can do. For instance, cutting actions. And sometimes there's actually one, I think the next one, where you'll see they also run a flare screen like a hammer on the weak side. So you do have a few options, But I think definitely at the start, it's easier to just have them appreciate spacing. And, you know, yeah.
Compared to like having the ball handler say, oh, we can't start with the handoff until the guy is,
Yeah.
it's more like I start with the handoff and then it's up to the guy
To get out. Exactly. Exactly. So here we got a Spain pick and roll. So this is a slow, this is a new one I just put in last month. I should have updated it, but I didn't. We run Spain as a slow ball trigger. Spain is literally, it's a very common action nowadays. So you can see it here. It's where we screen the picker. So there's a back screen set on the picker's defender. So you can see Linus here is back screening the picker's defender. It's very nasty to defend. Very difficult action. I think any set you have, I recommend having some type of Spain pick and roll for U16 up because it's very common nowadays. And you can see there, he's perception action coupling. He perceives that the defense, that Harry is getting behind the defense, there's space for that pass. Great solution, high value shot. Now here you see running some triggers, and this is what I mean with you said with the spacing too, kind of Matt's on this one. As we're running the triggers, you'll see, we've got some clutter through the lane, but we fix it, right? We fix it. Nice cut there. Now playing off the post, boom. So you can see here, repetition, repetition. Every kind of possession is different. I'm just going to let these run because I want to get to the...
So in games, start of season, how many triggers did you use in games?
We had 2 triggers. We had Gets and Pistol. Yeah. And then more and more from there. But I've got a lot of clips early season actually, which you guys will see, where, you can take one thing, but if you have good coverage solutions and the players can do different things, it's good. And it's way better to have 2 triggers and the players can come up with loads of different solutions off it, as opposed to having 5 triggers and players having no idea how to have solutions. Now you can see, and a lot of...
Practice on the solutions?
Yes, and I've got videos for you guys on all that. Yeah.
So you would like have a drill where you do a trigger and then you sort of open up for a different solution.
Yeah, so exactly. So a lot of it too is I'm really big on self-discovery. So we would do things like a lot of small-sided games with 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and I would constrain the defense. And I would say, all right, this is the defense we're going to do. So we're going to be switching, or we're going to be blitzing, trapping this, and now let the offense come up with the solutions, and I let them play through it. Then it's messy. But what you see is they can come up with some really good ideas. And you'll see, on a pick and roll, they might start rejecting the pick. They might start slipping automatically, and some really nice things can emerge. Then what happens is, I let them we talk through it and we apply terminologies to some of the solutions. So for instance, yeah, exactly. And then the specific ones I show on video, things which are more specific, but I'm very careful to be like, this is, each time we use it, something different could happen. And I'm going to show you that. So for instance, it's not the only way to do this, and you can't only, say we're slipping, I don't want you to only look for the guy slipping because the defense could tag and we have to skip. So what I try and do is when I have the video, I show them the same coverage solution, but with different scenarios. So maybe we take one slip or one ghost screen, but 5 different outcomes. And I say, there might be more waiting to be discovered by you guys as you do this. And the last thing I wanted to show you is it's not all perfect, and things like this will happen all the time as you start practicing. Boom. And we got to be comfortable with that, okay? Because the reward and what we get out of this, it's amazing. And the things like this, we just have to be comfortable with the mess in these situations. And the more small-sided games they have, the more playing with each other, obviously the more things like this are eliminated, but it's normal.